Hi, I'm Rigger. This is your right, and welcome to my new series, Resemblance. What is Resemblance? Well, it's the idea I had literally when I started this channel, in which DC Comics and Rooster Teeth literally stole from me. No, I maintain that. It was definitely on purpose. But yeah, that thing where DC adapted their characters into RWBY, I want to basically do that, because I like adaptation as a concept. It's very interesting to dive into, and it's an excuse to practice my drawing, so why not? So this is my concept, RWBY Resemblance, where we attempt to make an existing character who resembles their original, but in the world of RWBY. Therefore, likely having a semblance, resemblance. See? Aren't I clever? I meant to kick this series off many months ago, but that was not to be, so we're kicking it off now instead with a Christmas theme, as I create Team Gift. Yes, it's breaking the rules of RWBY. I know that gift is not a colour, but damn it, it's the holidays, so we're just gonna go with it. Got a problem with it? Fight me. Come on, fight me. Punch your screen. Do it. For the record, I don't intend to always do these in groups of 4. I'm not going to make a team every time. It can just be one-off characters, but for this one, there's a team, and we're going to use 4 iconic Christmas figures to make a team. Because hey, St. Nick was already done, so I can't do that one. And I didn't want to offend anyone either, so I'm not looking at more religious side of things, more specifically Christmas lore people, things that have been made up way later. But we do have 4 to go through, so we'd better get started pretty soon. Before we do though, if you missed last year, which the numbers say you did, I actually made a storytelling video where I invented Christmas in RWBY. What is the origin story of Christmas? They don't have our religions and our legends. How did they get all these similar iconography and all these similar practices? Well, I wrote a story that is that. So here's the link to that, and the link will be in the description, and at the end of the video there will be a card taking you straight there if you want to jump to it. If you like my RWBY run stuff, it's kind of similar to that. It's a storytelling bit, you have to use your imagination, but it's pretty good. I'm certainly proud of it. And also before we dive in, because I have to, please be sure to like the video if you like it, share anything else will like it, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and subscribe if you want to see more. That's the biggest Christmas present you could give me, is show this some love and share it around if you like it. So, what will our first challenge be? Who is the leader of Team Gift? Who is first up on the challenge? Well, it is none other than Dr. Seuss's iconic holiday thief. It's the Grinch. Now beforehand, I decided I was going to do a team of 4 heroes, so you might think the Grinch is a little hard to adapt into a hero, but he does come around in the end, so we're going to put our thinking caps on and make it work. Now, as you may have noticed, I'm in a new space here, and that's because this is my little resemblance workshop, because we have one goal in these videos, and that goal is to fill out this card. This is the resemblance card. Once you fill this out, you have a basic character. And you know, there'll be more details in what I say than what's on the card, but yeah, we're gonna fill this out and go through it step by step. Luckily, the Grinch has a fair bit to pull from the multiple film adaptations and the original text. But also, more than that, we all know his outline, right? Grumpy, hates Christmas, outcast, heart grows 3 sizes thanks to love and compassion, etc. All that. So let's dive in. First is first, we need a name, which usually would also help inform the gender as well. It doesn't fit in this line, so I'm going to stick the pronouns on the age line, but don't worry about it. But following RWBY's lead, we need to go for a colour name, and since the Grinch is nothing but green, a green name would help. And whilst he's the Grinch too, I wouldn't be opposed to a name starting with G, if we can. That would be interesting. And we already know it's Team Gift, so I achieved that. So, with all that, I decided his name should be in accordance with his green and the very natural setting he lives in. You know, he lives up on Mount Crumpet. It might be snowy, but it's nature-filled. So instead of a mountain, I thought, what about a fresh, clear forest in sound? So, I came to the name Glade. Glade is his name. It sounds strong, like a glaive or a gladius, like the weapon, but also like a nature scene, and it very much fits him, I think. So he is Glade. As for a second name, I had 2 options. I was either going to go with Crumpet, because that's funny, but also, it doesn't need to be that on the nose, so I actually thought, what about something that sounds like Grinch? And we have a lot of bird names, especially from Team Cardinal, so if we go along that line, I actually really like the name Finch, Glade Finch. Finches can be a variety of colours, and they are very nice, and it also leans into that nature-sounding name, and it sounds like Grinch, so I'm actually going to go with Glade Finch. Next we'll do age, and it's not the minimum 52 years the Grinch describes in his book, and in general I think this group stuck out to me as more of a headstrong student group, so I think they're all in their 2nd year, making Glade and the rest of this team to be 18. And I'm putting in the pronouns here just because they fit, like I said, so he's using he and him. Formatting, am I right? Anyway, so next is height. Again, I'm disregarding the story a bit because we have lots of versions where the Grinch is short in the story, and in the movie with Jim Carrey, he's pretty big. Instead, I'm putting him sort of right in the middle. I mean, tall, but, you know, he is the leader and everything. So I'm putting him right on 6 foot flat. He's at a commanding height, but not exceptionally tall or anything. But next we move on to some juicy stuff, so onto the weapon. Okay, so this is my favourite thing I've probably come up with for all 4 of these characters, and it's what the Grinch's weapon will be. Legit. I can't handle how much I love this. Okay, so what should the Grinch's weapon be? He's inventorly in the movies, but that's a little weak. And an option was stuff from the movies perhaps, like Miss Bouvier's Gatling gun, but we already have one of those, and I mean, it's just kind of there, it's not really the Grinch's. So then I pondered and I pondered and I contemplated. Maybe he doesn't use a weapon. Or maybe a generic firearm. But no, actually I arrived at something different. It is something we already have, but it needs a quick explanation as to why he has it, because I love this. Okay, so I was thinking of Grinch references, and I thought about the whole anecdotes from the story and its adaptation. Then the ending stuck out, because what is the joke that has been done many, many times? In fact, it's been done in RWBY, it's that obvious. That the joke is, of course, the horrific reality of what would happen if your heart grew 3 sizes. Well, just like in RWBY, Roman has a heart attack, of course. And then on a whim, I googled stuff about heart attacks. And do you know what the medical terminology for a heart attack is called? It's a major adverse cardiovascular event. Anyway, so I'm pondering a weapon, and the Grinch, who isn't subtle, causes destruction, and aims to wreck things, and I realized something. Major adverse cardiovascular event. Clearly his weapon is a mace. It's so perfect, look at it, look at those connections, that's just fun. So here is a mace. It has a telescopic shaft and a handle big enough to be both one- or two-handed. Is it the first bastard mace? I couldn't find if that was actually a thing. So you twist the bottom part of this grip to control the extension, because by the time you put your second hand there and twist it, you'll need it because the extended mace will require 2 hands. See? Smart. However, if you're really feeling spicy, pull the trigger, because once you do that, the entire mace will rotate around that circular point, push through it, and extend backwards, creating a very long pipe. That pipe is actually the base of a rocket launcher. Why? Because there is a real heat-seeking rocket launcher called the Grinch, or at least nicknamed that. I can't show it to you on screen, because YouTube hates real weapons and stuff, but promise me it's a thing. So here we have, instead of a missile though, it's a big charge of fire dust launcher. It launches a giant explosive ball of fire dust. It's one shot, so like a missile. And it has big destructive force, but it's a slow reload. And you reload through the heavy orb at the back. It's like a plot point, because it basically means you get to use it maybe once per battle, and it takes time to set up. So it's not used very much, it is there as a backup option or a utility if you can utilize an explosion in your tactic. But I realized I actually wanted him to have a medium range option, and neither of these apply. So he does have something interesting, something that's a good utility, a sort of secondary weapon. It's not in the original text, but instead influenced by the Jim Carrey scene of the Grinch accurately flinging letters upon letter into the mailboxes with absolute accuracy. Taking that, and the intro about all of Whoville being on a snowflake, I thought of a secondary weapon that would be pretty fun, especially given something that's coming soon. So he has these snowflake throwing stars. They're shurikens with a bit of ice dust on them. They're not for killing, but they are for incapacitating or changing directions and slowing down opponents to make it easier for himself and the rest of his team. They can be pretty useful if used correctly. And you can recover and reuse them, although you will need to change out the ice dust. Lastly, the weapons need a name, and I wasn't sure what to call it, and I know I said not to be on the nose, but I'm actually going to go with Crumpet and Crumbs. Why Crumpet and Crumbs? Well, it should probably be Crumpet and Flakes, but in the original poem, it does say he only left a crumb too small for a mouse, so it counts as a reference. And Crumpet is actually a exploration of the base words, because crump, the word crump, I know we're all thinking dancing. No, it actually means a loud thudding sound, especially one created by an explosion or a bomb. So if you apply that directly to the weapon, crump it means, like, blow it up. So that fits here. Perfect. Next up is Orwakara, that one's easy, we'll just make it green. After that is a big one, Semblance. So, we need something fitting that's interesting but has some balance to it. In the story, the Grinch's most notable action is stealing everything, but he learns the true meaning of spirit over materialism, And that's a great word, so I think that's a good place to start, and a great name. We'll call it materialism. And what he can do is he can materialize materials, but I don't mean base components, I mean like objects, proper constructed materials. So how I think this works is it needs some decent restrictions. It only applies to objects, they have to be within a certain range. Doesn't make it a pretty big range, so it's fun. But it has to be within a range, he doesn't have to be able to see it. Being able to do it from a few buildings away would be fun, but not continents or anything. But what he can do is he can touch something. With his aura up, his aura has to be active, and once he touches it, he leaves like a mark on any object. And if his aura breaks, this resets. So it's only once his aura is up, it's from that point. Basically, anything he touches that he intends to do this to, with his aura up, he can then expend some aura to summon it to his hand, which would be like using his semblance. And that's an important point. It has a weight limit, so it has to be something he can carry. He can't like summon a house. But what it means is he basically can't be disarmed, because he can summon his weapon right back to him. It also means he can resummon and throw his stars. It also means until his aura breaks, it's really hard for you to capture him, because he can summon weapons to himself or other tools that he has at the ready. It also means he can summon his teammates' weapons back if they've done their prep beforehand, which they likely have. That would be part of his planning. So if you disarm his teammate, he will summon their weapon back to him and hand it back to them. It also means you can't steal from him very easily. If he has something he's trying to look after, he will mark it. If you steal it, he'll take it back. But also, another danger in this is if he marks your stuff. If he, in a fight, manages to touch your weapon or your armor, well, he can teleport it to himself and disarm you. That's bad. Now, it's very difficult to get your hand on someone's weapon in a fight. Not impossible, so look out for that. As you can see, it's very, very useful, but it requires prep work, it requires hard work, and it requires being used right, and it requires the use of aura, and if his aura breaks, everything gets reset to 0. So all those little things get tied into it. It is also great for pranks, if you want. Hand someone something like a drink and then steal it right back when they go to drink it, or anything else. Pretty fun, and don't use it in rude ways because people like their clothes. Stop it, you. Back to this character sheet though, we will do some skills and flaws. Skills might not be the right word, sometimes it'll just be positives about them, but you get the idea. As per being the Grinch, let's make him a master planner. He is a schemer, he is good at this. The Grinch was entirely successful in what he set out to do, it just didn't have the intended effect. Now, for fun, I want to make him a demolitions expert as well, somewhat in line with the scheming. He can plot where explosives could be useful. Taking down this barricade here or that building there will funnel people this way, do that kind of thing. It's just a fun thing for him to have in his calculations of how a plan works. Next is sleight of hand. He has quick hands. It's important for what he does and his semblance, and it will be important from his background. And also stealth. He is good at sneaking when he needs to be. The Grinch only got caught once. And also, since he got caught once, he also lied his way out of it, so we'll make him good at deception. He's a good liar when he's trying. Even in The Grinch, he convinced people he was Santa. He has pretty good melee combat. Like most huntsmen do, right? It comes with the field. But he's probably above average, but not incredible or anything. He's not a master. But he does fight tricky because he fights with a heavy weapon but fast hands, so he'll make you block the big mace, and you think that all he's going for is power moves, and he'll do a sneaky leg sweep, or in his offhand he'll grapple and surprise you or summon something to it. He's got great little tricks, and he also has pretty great athletics. He's hard to tire out, and he's stronger than he looks. He's not a beast, but he is notably good. I'm adding in here also crowd control, also tying that into the demolitions and planning, just that he can predict and manipulate the flow of crowds pretty well in a plan and in a battle, just tactically. If we attack here, they'll move there, etc. And that's good for fighting Grimm, especially in large numbers. Lastly, he has really good hand and eye coordination, which is essential for his quick hands and his throwing stars, etc. He's just pretty accurate. And next we'll do his flaws, and we'll keep them in line with the Grinch for the most part. He's irritable and reactionary. He's usually grumpy, and he can be provoked pretty easily. He's vengeful if you cross him. So if you make him your enemy, that will stick, and it won't be a good time for either of you. And he can be quite underhanded. Despite being a good guy in this story, it counts as a flaw if you think it does. He doesn't really care about honor or sportsmanship. He'll do what it takes to win. You can see that as a positive or a negative, but that's his mindset. And Lastly, we'll make him pretty pessimistic, and just to add to his grumpiness, despite being a good leader and a great planner, he generally assumes things won't work out well or things just aren't going well. In a way, it helps him plan for everything that will go wrong, but it does make him a bit of a downer and thinking the worst of most things and sometimes a lot of people. That's pretty fitting with his character and gives a few wrinkles to get in the way. Now let's go to the middle portion, character design. For this, I looked over what is constant about the Grinch on screen and what we can pull from the original description, etc. Basically, alright, green, thin limbs, round body, and well, naked. So we're not making him naked, but perhaps he went to the Team Sun School of Armor. Because it's specifically the Grinch who stole Christmas too, I might also give him the Santa outfit, so that's the jacket, the hat, and the shoes. There's also the hair spike and the red eyes. So it'll be more like Crow Red Eyes than Salem obviously, but we can work with that. Let's see what we got. In 3, 2, 1, now. Ooh, okay. So let's go over it. First up, yes, I made the Grinch hot, because that's funny. I find it very amusing if you're attracted to the Grinch. Now, I probably should have given him body hair to be more in line, but instead I think the all green clothing works for that, since he's meant to be more like a mean teen, and also, yeah, the naked thing kinda ties into all the open chest. And yeah, Team Sun sense of defense, aka no armor, but it keeps him light on his feet and quick. Tight, darker green pants to give him the stick leg look as much as we can, so making them as skin tight as we kind of can while still being pants, not tights. Big red shoes, and also the best shoes I've ever drawn too, by the way, proud of those. But big in those high tops, so they go over the pant leg, which gives him the big shoe look, which kind of fits with at least the Jim Carrey version of this look. And the inner white canvas look of the high tops mean that it can look more like Santa shoes, so I think that works. Waist up, we have a total disregard for other people, almost insulting two-button done-up look. But actually the point of that is to make the shirt balloon out a bit, as well as the jacket over top, to still create a round silhouette on his lower body, despite him being quite thin and built. So he has the right shape. The Santa jacket will always be kind of obvious, but I did my best here to try and convert it more into a Letterman style, so he fits more like the crappy jock look. The wide collar from the undershirt I actually really like as an allusion to this hair frill he often has. It just creates something interesting in the silhouette and is easy to do with that collar. I tried some facial hair because of the whole thing, especially with the Jim Carrey film, but it wasn't really working, so I kept him clean shaven. Makes him look a little more smug anyway. The red beanie is easy for the Santa hat and, leave it back there a little hipster style. And I traded the one spike for these 3 green spikes because the one looked ridiculous no matter how hard I tried, but the 3 works as like a little, spiked up at the front look. Green eyebrows to match, of course, and some shifty thin red eyes, that works. I wanted to keep the pants dark because being too saturated or greener they look like velvet or something, so they're like this desaturated dark green. And the hair then almost matches the pants, so you get a little continuity through the design. The one thing I don't have for any of these characters is an emblem. I just ran out of time to design one. That might be on the back of the jacket to break up all the red, that could be a good place for it. The pale green shirt actually looks like a real shirt you could buy, pretty normally, and it isn't super vibrant green against the red to make it look too Christmassy. So it's not perfect overall as a design, but I'm actually pretty happy with it. It doesn't have any of the RWBY asymmetry to it, which is sort of part of their style a lot of the time, but I still think it works in its own way. But now we move on to the all-important right side of the card. Let's make him a character. So, we've already said he's a cunning schemer and a strong leader. But he tends to jump into underhanded tactics. He definitely needs to be tapered by a team. In general, he's quiet, calculating and plotting, watching other people. That can make people suspicious of him. But like the actual Grinch, he really is more of a loner. It's not always so sinister. He is, however, prone to outbursts. He is reactionary. So that doesn't help his reputation, because when people do go up at him, he does rise to meet them. If you annoy or provoke him, he will fire back, and that doesn't help his image. He also probably is just seen as a bit of a buzzkill too, due to his irritable nature and pessimistic outlooks. He doesn't say a lot of positive stuff. Does mean that, well, he's just a particular personality, and you probably wouldn't be the first to invite him to a party or something, especially if you didn't already know him. Next are his goals and allegiances. What does he want and who is he loyal to? So, being who he is, I don't think he's really loyal to any organizations like the school or military. those things I don't think he values at all. The same goes for other teams or specific places. I don't think those are what tie him down. I think it's really key people. He won't rally because a place or some team they know is necessarily needing help. But while loyalty to those people might not be his motivation, remember he is also cunning and he is on the side of good overall. So despite not being super loyal, he might go rescue you or help you or work with you because he sees value in others. He will work with people he doesn't like if it's the most effective way to do it. So if you're a valuable asset, he will try and help you and rescue you and save you because that can be used later. You might not like that, but it still means he does the right thing. So it is possible to also form a very strong bond with him, but even if you don't, it doesn't mean he won't work with you if you're useful. But he can form those strong bonds with people. Reaching more into the movies now, there can be a Cindy Lou Who for him. There can be people he forms these strong emotional ties with, and given the right person and circumstance, that can be pretty powerful. He also won't admit what his goals are to anyone, but secretly, because we're designing the character, it's not a story, what he wants to do is he wants to save others from growing up how he did. A little self-recognition that he isn't the greatest person and he knows that, and if he can help others not become like him, then he will. And also that ties into why he wants to be a huntsman, of course, because he wants to generally help people, especially younger people. This leads swiftly into background, so I think he was born in Mistral. I know Mount Crumpet and snow and all that, but he wouldn't survive on his own out there, and I don't want him running around Mantle. Rather than that, I think he did live near mountains in the Anima continent, and he was probably an orphan, similar to Nora or perhaps even Cinder, perhaps starting in an orphanage, but like the Grinch from the movies, he takes it upon himself to leave. He runs away from that orphanage, doesn't get adopted or anything. He probably had a tough time while he was there too, but once he leaves, he quickly toughens up to survive. So he got the base of his toughness from his rough time at the orphanage, runs away too early, and is then quite young on his own, not in a big city, and, in nature, there are Grimm around. You gotta toughen up, be smart, be fast, and learn all those skills pretty quick, and he did. Unlike the Grinch, I don't think he totally lived out on his own in the wilderness, because he would definitely be dead. Instead, he probably went from small town to small town, leaving when he got a reputation, because he probably became a thief and like a street rat, which is one of the ways he developed his skills for planning and stealth and having quick thieves' hands. He probably also developed his semblance in a moment of desperation, like being attacked, maybe even by a Grimm, and summoned a nearby object that he'd previously touched as a weapon, something like that. In the event, of course, he already had access to his aura, which he probably did, he just hadn't found his semblance yet, but that's how that manifested, because he had his aura while fighting, and then, he needs a weapon, and suddenly one's in his hand. Oh, that's great. And after that, stealing became very easy. Just walk into a store like a person, touch the items you want, and leave without paying, and then just summon them to you a few streets away. To start out, he probably could only do one, and then developed it a little bit, so now he can do a few things. And he had to defend himself from Grimm, living how he did, and eventually traded up from clubs and stolen farm tools into his eventual mace once he got some money. I think he finds his purpose in general when a group of kids are attacked, probably by Grimm, and he can't help but step in and save them. Seeing himself in the kids, or they could become what he was, and seeing also their gratitude and the promise of their lives that they have now, seeing that they could grow up to be happy and not have to live how he did, that gives him a purpose, it gives him a drive, so he enrolls to be a huntsman and help save people. His talents as a leader then are quickly discovered in training. I also think that works pretty well as a backstory, as seeing their spirit and seeing their happiness and feeling their joy actually resounds in him and changes his outlook a little. And that warmth gives him a purpose. Just like with the Grinch when he feels Christmas spirit and he returns everything, etc, etc. And lastly, we'll add on a few quirks just to round him out as a character. Like the Grinch, we'll say he hates loud noises, despite carrying a giant explosive weapon, so he probably actually hates firing it, but sees the use in doing so, because it also plays into being irritable. He doesn't like noises, and yeah. He has a soft spot for kids too. I think that really plays into his backstory and plays into his original story, that the spirit of children and being around kids really affects him, and he becomes a much nicer, softer person. You get to see that side of him. And it might really be why some people around him became friends with him, or why his teammates might bond with him more if they see him around kids and see how that changes him and sees who he is underneath. I also like that he's unable to handle praise, like he doesn't accept it despite being a leader. He thinks people are either mocking him when they praise him because people were never nice to him, Or he gets overwhelmed if he does feel it's sincere and gets almost embarrassed because he's not used to people complimenting him at all. But then unfortunately he perceives that as a weakness, so he then hides it under a harder exterior, so he might fire back or put some snappy retort out because he wants to avoid showing that emotion. Also, he likes snacks. Why is that here? Well, actually, because he's kind of like Hook, basically, which is on my mind at the moment. If you don't know who that is, don't worry about it. But it came to mind. Plus, Jim Carrey Grinch sat around snacking, and also Christmassy stuff. I know it says he doesn't like some foods in the poem, but whatever. Also, it helps play into people not liking him. If he's sitting in the background watching everyone while eating something, that will always give off a suspicious vibe, and it just gives him some character. And there we have it. The Grinch as a huntsman, the leader of Team Gift. Come back soon to see who is next. Can you guess the team? Also, more than that, what do you think of this design and this character? What would you change? What do you like? And what do you think of this new show idea in general? Let me know. There's a comment section down there exactly for that. And be sure to please give this video a like if you like it, because that really helps the most of all. Until next time, my name is RWBY. I hope you have a wonderful holidays, and I hope I did alright.